I walked into the luxurious hotel room, the carpet thick and quiet under my sensible shoes. The air smelled of expensive cologne and cheap champagne. Ryan, my husband, was standing by the window pouring a bottle of bubbly. Across the room, sitting on the edge of the bed in a plush white robe, was Callie, his ex-wife. They both froze the instant they saw me. The picture was perfect, exactly as I had imagined it. I walked slowly across the room, my focus locked on the small, crumpled paper I held in my hand. I walked right up to the small table and placed the paper next to the ice bucket. I delivered the line I had rehearsed for weeks, my voice calm. "You left this in the dryer." Ryan's face instantly went completely white. My name is Aubrey, and for 2 years I was married to Ryan. I loved him, but I always felt like the second wife, a grounded, practical replacement for his dramatic first love, Callie. It felt like a job interview I never truly passed, constantly being compared to the ghost of his ex-wife. My mother-in-law never let me forget it. I was the reliable one. Callie was the love of his life. The emotional exhaustion was raw and real, but I knew the rules of the game were changing. I admitted to myself that I didn't find that first hotel receipt by accident. I was looking for it. The day he started pulling away wasn't one big fight. It was 1,000 tiny cuts. Ryan stopped saying "I love you" unless I said it first. Callie started showing up more often, always with a plausible excuse, dropping off tax papers, asking for advice. Then came the ultimate sign. His mother, standing right in front of me during a family lunch, referred to Callie as family again, just like old times. The worst came last month. Ryan canceled our planned anniversary trip, claiming he had an unavoidable conference out of state. I noted the dates and the forced sincerity in his eyes. I was doing laundry a few days later when I felt a stiffness in the pocket of his jacket. I reached in, and my hands started to tremble before I even pulled it out. It was a hotel receipt. The dates matched his supposed conference. The city was a resort town, not a business hub. The booking name was clearly Ryan's. The most painful detail was the guest list: 2 adults. I managed to finish the laundry, but the shaking wouldn't stop. I walked into his office later that night and searched his top desk drawer. Under a pile of old papers, I found something worse: Callie's favorite silver bracelet. Instead of yelling, crying, or demanding an explanation, I played the role of the oblivious wife perfectly. I didn't confront him. I watched. I studied his lies, noted every time he checked his phone when I walked in the room, and observed his relaxed routine when he thought I wasn't paying attention. I started planting seeds, asking casual questions about the conference, and mentioning the resort town coincidentally. I was collecting evidence, not just seeking comfort. I needed proof that would stand up later. When he wasn't home, I quietly slipped a small voice recorder into his car under the passenger seat. The full weight of my erasure hit me with a flashback to a family dinner shortly after Callie left Ryan years ago. His mother had cornered me in the kitchen, her voice low and sharp. "You'll never be her, Aubrey." She meant I was replaceable, just temporary filler. That memory solidified my resolve. A few weeks later, my silent investigation paid off. I managed to gain access to his tablet and found it: a group chat between Ryan, his mother, and Callie. They were actively plotting what they called the transition. The things I read in that group chat made me feel sick, then cold. They referred to me only as temporary or the house sitter. The plans were detailed: reintroducing Callie slowly, publicly, pretending they were rebuilding a friendship for the children's sake, and then slowly easing Aubrey out. They were all working together to end my marriage and hurt me without any guilt. The final post made my hands clench. Ryan's mother suggested that Callie should attend the upcoming big family vacation instead of me. A day later, I searched Ryan's work email on his tablet. I found the confirmed vacation itinerary for the family trip he had planned for the entire summer. My name was completely missing from the list of attendees. In fact, Callie's name was listed, right next to his on the family flight and the hotel reservations. I felt a chill run through me. they had planned to leave me behind and replace me. I closed the laptop, took a deep breath, and prepared my innocent act. That evening, I asked Ryan, casually, while we were watching TV, "Should I start packing for the summer trip?" He just smiled nervously and said, "Not yet, honey." I suggested we try couples therapy, knowing full well it would be a test. Ryan agreed immediately, seeing it as a way to prove he was trying. During the session, he lied the entire time, blaming my insecurity for the distance between us. He was calm, articulate, and completely convincing. The therapist, a well-meaning woman, seemed to believe him. I didn't correct him, I just sat quietly, observing his performance. As we were leaving, I saw a notification pop up on his watch, a text from Callie that read, "Don't forget the champagne for the celebration." I now knew the exact timing of their upcoming getaway. That evening, after Ryan fell asleep, I retreated to the guest bathroom and listened to the audio captured by the recorder in his car. I listened to hours of them laughing, planning, and sharing cruel jokes about my life. I heard Ryan and Callie discussing how soon they could let me go. He sounded completely careless. The final line I heard was the one that truly saved me. Ryan said to Callie, "She won't fight it, she's too polite, too afraid of drama." I turned the volume off. I looked at my reflection in the dark mirror and smiled. They had grossly underestimated me. The silent preparation for war began immediately. I consulted a lawyer the next day, a sharp woman recommended by a friend. I started untangling our shared finances, separating joint savings and credit cards. I opened a small, private bank account under a completely different name that he would never check. I was calm, meticulous, and completely strategic. The lawyer guided me through the legal requirements for a divorce based on infidelity and marital fund misuse. The ultimate act of quiet self-defense came that week. I secretly switched the beneficiaries on all our shared life insurance policies and assets to my children and a trusted sibling. I began to intentionally fade into the background at home. I became a ghost in my own house. I stopped cooking his favorite meals and started taking long walks alone. I let Ryan and his mother believe their plan was working perfectly, that I was retreating into myself and accepting my fate. I let them feel like they were winning. My quiet withdrawal gave Ryan the confidence to be careless. One evening, he left his laptop open on the kitchen counter while he went out to the garage. I walked over and quickly screenshotted every incriminating email, including the full reservation details for the resort hotel. The final act of social cruelty was the dinner party from hell. Ryan's mother, knowing I knew about the vacation, hosted a family dinner and forgot to send me an invitation. Callie was there, seated right next to Ryan, playing the role of the devoted family friend. I showed up anyway, completely uninvited. I walked in wearing a dress I knew Ryan loved, carrying a cake. The room went silent. I walked past the table, pulling up a small empty chair from the corner. I sat down directly across from Callie, smiled brightly, and said, "You forgot my seat, Mom. I brought my own." My lawyer called soon after that dinner, her voice tight with legal excitement. She had been investigating the shared accounts. She discovered that Ryan, in anticipation of the divorce, had illegally transferred a large portion of our marital funds to an account solely in his name. This was a clear violation of state property law. This discovery was the game changer. I now had definitive proof of his malice, not just his cheating. The leverage was enormous, moving the case from a messy divorce to a straightforward financial fraud case. I had the evidence I needed to demand everything. It was time to plant the final trap. I announced to Ryan that I was leaving town for a long weekend with a friend. I made sure he saw me pack a small bag and say a loud goodbye to our kids. He was thrilled. He thought the coast was completely clear for his getaway with Callie. He packed his suitcase and left early the next morning, heading straight for the resort. I, however, didn't leave town. I simply drove to the same resort, checked in using my maiden name, and secured a suite next door to theirs. I waited for the perfect, most humiliating moment to strike. I listened carefully through the wall. I heard their laughter, the click of the door, and the sound of a champagne bottle popping. I waited until the exact moment I imagined them relaxing, the expensive robe on Callie, the smug look on Ryan's face. Then I knocked once, hard on their door. Ryan opened it, and his shock was absolute. I walked in, said my line, and placed the receipt on the table. Callie gasped, sinking onto the edge of the bed. She whispered the perfect, damning confession. She wasn't supposed to find out. Ryan, recovering slightly, started to stammer out some pathetic explanation. I held up my hand, cutting him off completely. My voice was ice cold. Don't bother, Ryan. This wasn't a mistake. It was a plan, and I know everything. I looked from him to Callie. I know about the group chat, I know about the financial transfers, and so does my lawyer. I pointed to the small bag I carried. In this bag, I have a copy of the audio from your car. I let that sink in. I knew the conversation was recorded, and they couldn't deny anything. I left the hotel room and drove straight back to the city. The next morning, Ryan's mother hosted her annual birthday brunch. I showed up, completely uninvited, walking in just as the appetizers were served. I didn't say a word. I simply pulled a stack of professionally printed papers from my purse. The hotel receipts, the group chat transcripts, and the bank statements. I walked around the room, handing them out to everyone, his sisters, his aunts, his cousins, like party favors. The room went silent as they read the damning evidence. The family, who had treated me with such coldness, finally understood the depth of the deception. His sister, Amelia, who had always been cold to me, walked over and actually apologized. "You didn't deserve this, Aubrey," she whispered, giving me a hug. They quickly turned their anger on Ryan and Callie. I left the brunch, the chaos already beginning behind me. On my way out, I walked past Ryan, who was frozen in shame, and dropped a thick envelope into his lap, the finalized divorce papers. I walked away. There was no screaming, no crying, and no grand exit speech. Just my suitcase, my car keys, and my absolute silence. It was the exit no one expected. I didn't return to the marital home. Instead, I drove directly to my new, small apartment downtown. It was already fully furnished and prepaid in full with the emergency funds I had secretly transferred. The peace I felt walking into my own space was the start of my new life. The fallout began for Ryan almost instantly. Callie, seeing his entire family turn on him and his financial dishonesty exposed, started slipping away. She realized he was a liability, not a prize. She had never planned to stay with him long-term anyway. The biggest pain came from his own children. They resented him for the lies and the cruel way he had treated me, who had always been a steady presence. The shock was complete when Callie, in a final act of self-preservation, exposed him in return, revealing she had only wanted the stability he offered, not him. His mother, who had been the ringleader of the betrayal, suffered a massive blow to her social standing. The receipts and transcripts went viral in their social circle, and her reputation as the matriarch was ruined. Mama's golden boy crumbled in front of the entire community. Meanwhile, my quiet, dependable life started to pay off. The community center where I had volunteered for years, completely unaware of my drama, offered me a leadership role and a respectable salary. I took the new job. I reconnected with old friends Ryan had pressured me to cut off. I started painting again, a hobby he had always mocked. It was the life I was kept from, now mine for the taking. I stopped focusing on them and started focusing on me. I visited the school where I volunteered, and one of my former students, now a college student, saw me. He walked up, his eyes wide. "Miss Aubrey, you look so happy now," he said. I knew he was right. Ryan tried every pathetic trick to win me back, through friends, through the kids, through my lawyer, but I was unreachable. The cage he had built for me, based on lies and control, became the cage he built for himself. He was completely alone, trapped by his own exposed failures. I sent him one last thing through my lawyer, not an email, but a physical letter. It read, "I loved you until I met the version of me you were afraid of." The final scene was one of perfect, quiet victory. I was hosting a backyard dinner party at my small, bright apartment. Laughter filled the air, genuine laughter, not the forced performances of my past marriage. There was no drama, no secrets, and no lies, just peace. I raised a glass of sparkling cider to my friends, celebrating my freedom. I realized I didn't destroy him. I just stopped protecting him from the truth.